sure if you don't tell people at least every once in a while that you're sorry about the lighting. I'm losing daylight right now and I prefer to shoot in natural light, so I apologize if the lighting's kind of weird. We're burning daylight right now. But in today's video, I really wanted, by popular demand, it's been requested, but I really wanted to share my top 3 things that I feel like really helped me navigate through my spiritual awakening. If you don't know what a spiritual awakening is, it can be referred to as many different things, but a lot of it, like, it can be part of a dark night of the soul, which I've covered here on my channel. It can be part of awakening Kundalini energy. There are so many different things that kind of entwine with a spiritual awakening. And I myself went through a spiritual awakening from 2017 through about, I'm going to say, the end of 2019. So it was a 3-year-long process for me. It was not the easiest thing in the world. It was actually very hard. And I feel like it was during that time, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're really going into talking about, during that time, my life just didn't make sense. My spirituality, a lot of my beliefs didn't make sense. The people I was talking to, a lot of my relationships felt very like lifeless. My entire life as a concept, I just couldn't understand, and I was so miserable. Everything in my life was not working out. Health-wise, my health was deteriorating at the time. Career-wise, my career had completely tanked, which I've been an entrepreneur for a decade, and my career that I had worked so hard to build was completely running into the ground because it wasn't aligned with me anymore and what I was becoming. Nothing made sense. And I just felt like I was seeing all of my own trauma, A, coming to the surface, and B, all of the relationships that I had made up to that point they just didn't feel right. They didn't feel like they were, and I shouldn't say all of them because there are some people that I still have beautiful relationships with from that time period and before, but many of them, I feel like a lot of my relationship dynamics or relationships changed after this. But it is basically, to me, the most simple way I could put it is you're making room for your consciousness to up-level. The way that your life has been before a spiritual awakening is like your consciousness hasn't quite expanded to the level that it needs to. And so in order to wake you up and expand your consciousness, usually there is this period where you go through a spiritual awakening. And a lot of people, it's a very scary time, myself included. When I went through that, it's like you're unsure of everything. You don't know what is correct, which way you should go, who you should listen to, and you're kind of left to navigate things on your own a lot of the time. And I feel like my spiritual awakening, it could have been significantly shorter if I had known these 3 things in particular. So we're just going to go ahead and jump straight in. My number 1 tip is to educate yourself. And that doesn't mean like go study one thing. It means open yourself up to a wide range of education, preferably in the niche of self-help. I find that the stigma doesn't really exist as much as it used to, but there used to be this huge stigma around like self-help and people reading self-help and how it's kind of like taboo. But I feel like self-help now, more and more people are more comfortable expressing that they're reading it, that they've read really great things. And I firmly believe that if I had dipped into the realm of self-help faster, I would have come out the other side of my spiritual awakening a lot faster. Even though I also do believe everything happens in divine timing, I just feel like had I been able to grasp certain things faster, it would have happened faster. So dive into the realm of self-help. Don't be afraid to, well, obviously do it safely during these times in the world where a lot of things are not safe. Do it safely, but don't be afraid to go to your bookstore or order online and have books shipped to you and choose books that I know there are many that I have recommended here on my channel. I have book videos that I've done a lot. I think I have one that's like the top books that I read that I feel like really transformed my life. And I would say that for me anyways, if you feel like anything I've just said explains where you're at right now, or even a fraction of it, start with that video and see if any of those books resonate with you and maybe consider picking up a copy. So don't be afraid to educate yourself. Don't be afraid to start somewhere. And just bring new information into your realm. I feel like if you're sitting even listening to any of my videos, not necessarily just pick a cards, which I know a lot of people listen to those, but even my other content, I have a whole playlist on this channel called Up-Leveling Your Life. And that is all of these podcast episodes that I feel like these are topics that I have experience with, that I kind of help give you the synopsis of those experiences to hopefully help you navigate somewhere clearer in your life where you feel like you don't have the clarity. So just don't be afraid to educate yourself more and kind of broaden the scope. I feel like, especially in terms of spiritual awakening, a lot of people, when they start to question their reality and their spirituality, they will rely heavier on like the Bible. And I don't think that's wrong. I will never tell you that reading the Bible is wrong. I will never tell you that any of your religious practices are wrong, as long as you're not hurting anyone else or insisting that anybody else has to be like you. Like, to me, there's really no wrong spirituality out there. It's whatever makes you the best version of you that you can be, then it's correct for you. But I feel like a lot of people will fall heavily back on the Bible, and the Bible does have, like, in my opinion, from my perspective, there is good merit to the Bible. To me, personally, it is a book of parables that teaches really good, strong values and lessons, but that's kind of it for me. That's where my stuff with the Bible kind of stops. And again, I never want to tell you what you need to do or what you shouldn't read, etc., etc. But don't be afraid to look at other things. Don't be afraid to try out other spirituality practices. Don't be afraid to step away from only Christian-based faith, because I feel like, based on my comment sections, that's what most people fear, is they've kind of been taught to have the fear of God in them. And so they're afraid to even branch away and look at anything else. Excuse me. And I'm somebody that was raised in a heavily Christian-based faith. And it took a long time for me to overcome and kind of see where I could look at other things, even just to understand. So I know a lot of you have that background, and that's why I'm saying these things. Like, don't be afraid to expand your knowledge in a different way that isn't just all Christianity based. And for some of you, you might not even be Christian or anything of that. Just know that that part of the message is not for you. Now, the next thing I want to say, this is probably the most important thing, and me saying it isn't going to make it easier for you. You have to feel this out yourself, and this is the hardest part. But once you get over this hump in your spiritual awakening, it will be so much easier, I promise. You have to surrender. The more you try to control and force things and make things move in a certain way and make this, like, whatever is trying to be made known to your consciousness known, the harder you chase it, the more you are in a state of resistance. You need to just let it come to you the way that it needs to be presented, because everything will always be in divine timing. You're never going to be too late or too early or whatever it might be. You're never going to be off path or hitting things at the wrong time. And surrendering, especially when you're somebody who maybe is used to always controlling everything in your reality, surrendering can be a really difficult process. It's not easy. But I am here, standing living proof, to tell you, as a stubborn Taurus, both in sidereal and tropical astrology, I am a Taurus sun. And stubborn Taurus here, it took me 3 years to come to that moment of surrender and just dropping to my knees and being like, look, I don't know what else to do. None of this is working. None of it's making sense. I need something different. I got to do something different. And so it wasn't until I surrendered that over that all the doors that had been closed flew open. I got to choose a new direction and everything started to click. You have to come to that point of surrender and losing the control. And usually it takes time to get there. Usually you don't start a spiritual awakening and then just surrender immediately. Maybe if you've already been through one, it's easier, but it's something that usually you have to come to over time, that you will surrender. But it doesn't necessarily come immediately or naturally to most people, I would say. But that is probably the most important thing you can do to navigate your spiritual awakening, is just stop trying to force, understand, or make an outcome happen. Just, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm accepting where this is. I know that the divine is never going to lead me astray. I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so this is where I'm going to be right now. It's taking that and just saying, okay. And it seems so much easier said than done, and that's because it is. But I feel like that is probably the number one thing. If I had done that like year one of my spiritual awakening, it would have happened so much faster. Now, the last thing I want to say is don't be afraid to ask for help. And I know that when you're going through a spiritual awakening, it feels like you have no one you can talk to usually. Like most of the relationships you have, most of the time you don't find people, or you're not in relationships with people that are on that same wavelength, so they don't get it either. Or you're finding that all of the relationships you had were built on something that was false, like a false sense of identity. So it is hard to reach out to anyone when you start to realize how it doesn't really make sense. But even in my community, I mean, I can't promise you that I'm always going to be able to be there to respond. I do my best, but I'm one person with thousands of eyes on me. So I can't promise that I'm always going to be able to be there. But, you know, there are communities, there are lots of places online. We live in a digital age now. We live at one of the greatest times in history for human connection, because we are able to connect with people from all over the globe instantaneously. So, and there are how many people on the planet? Like, we live at such a blessed time to actually be able to make those connections and have people help us navigate the way. So don't be afraid to reach out to others, community members, you know, whoever it may be. There is someone out there that knows what you're going through, has experienced it. You're not alone in this. And that's something that I didn't learn until recently. Like, I feel like my spiritual awakening already happened, and I'm not necessarily still going through it anymore, not the thick of it anyways. And that's something that recently happened. As I've been growing this community, I've realized how many of you there are that feel similarly to me, or experience things similarly, or believe in similar things, where I come from a very religious background where this kind of stuff was not talked about and was not received okay. And I have not a lot of friends. Most of my friends are pretty cool, or they are similar in view. Not everyone. I think it's good to keep an array around you. I don't think it's good to always just have an echo chamber, but I feel like even a lot of my own friends were not on the same wavelength, minus like a few of them. So it's crazy to me that I can build a community where so many like-minded individuals come together. So even just being a part of this community, that is proof to you that more of us exist. More people that believe in light work and starseeds and tarot and astrology and finding your own spiritual path and listening to your higher self and, you know, all that good stuff. So never feel like you are alone in this. Know that there is always somebody that has been through something similar or can shed some lights, and just don't be afraid to reach out. And that is all I have for you on tips for your awakening. So I know those were kind of really basic. I would love to get into more like specific things, but I really wanted to do like a basic, you're really struggling here. I hope this helps, but we're losing daylight, so I am going to go. Thank you so very much for tuning in today. Please remember that when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. I love you all so much, and I will see you again real soon.